Just making sure all the technical stuff is all set. Monitors are backwards. Okay, cool. So, welcome everybody to the Toronto user group. Tonight's speaker is Jeff Darchuk, and he'll be talking to you about blue-green deployments and why they're awesome and why you need them, um, and how magical they can be. The way we start these Toronto user groups off is with a Sitecore stand-up. So the first half hour or so is going to be we're going to go around the virtual room, and everybody is going to just kind of give a quick update, like what you've been working on in the Sitecore realm in the last, well, whatever you want to share. I was gonna say last month, but I don't even remember what I did at the last user group. And just we're gonna go around the room and do that, and then afterwards we'll move into Jeff's talk, and I'll dim the lights in this virtual cinema.
Okay,
So
great. So then, just a quick note in the meetup, the agenda says 5:30 to 6 is the virtual reception, and then 6 to 6:30 the stand up. Are we
okay.
switching and starting maybe at 6 or?
Um, Probably not, because then people might not get here for the talk.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, I thought we were gonna go. Yep. So before that point, then guess we'll just chat.
Yeah, I think we didn't update the agenda, but in the last little thing that we had, we said, we're going to try to do a little stand up early and then get into the presentation and then complete stand up if there's still folks who haven't gone, and continue our discussion stuff. But I think, yeah, chit chat is also, of course, welcome at this stage. You'll
I
leave the
mean,
class we were at. So
yeah, I say we start the stand up now though, because um, these tend to go a little bit long anyway.
yeah,
And then for the next user group, we'll fix the
update the agenda.
yeah.
Okay, sure.
Um,
Just wanted to clarify because I mean it's just yeah, but they're all good. Yeah, we can start the sign up. That's fine.
oh, so you're volunteering?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I mean, stand up. So in the last while, excuse me, we've been working on the new technologies around Kubernetes. We're launching on production the first project on 10.1 on the containers for a government agency. That's exciting. We found a lot of challenges and limitations that we had to overcome, specifically in regards to Coveo and how it's compatible with containers, and Solar and how it works with containers, like all these details. That was fun. And then we're getting into Boxever 451, all these microservices, learning all this new stuff. How Sitecore is moving to SaaS and how they're gonna integrate all these services together. So that's exciting as well, and scary at the same time. So symposium call for papers is in 2 weeks. So we're also putting together some papers and encourage everybody to as well submit. I'm sure everybody has good things to talk about and share with the community. So um, yeah, I mean that's basically the highlights from my side.
Cool. Any volunteers for next, or I'll just start calling people. Okay,
I'll
Jeff, you're
Nope. Just
okay.
got it. Nope, just got it.
Nope.
Too
You
late.
volunteered.
Okay, I volunteered. I actually don't think I've met half of you. I'm Zach. I work at Perficient, and recently just put out or launched a second site in a XXA tenant, and we are just kind of doing some support, post-launch support right now with that stuff. And I did the Sitecore hackathon with Sasha. We weren't on the same team, but we were both freaking out about the Docker scripts. So that was fun. And so right now, Megan Jensen and I are doing like a co-authoring of a series of, she provides like behavioral economics or behavioral theories, and I provide how to do technical implementations in XXA to support designing your site and all that good stuff. And right now I'm really beginning to learn Docker for the first time. So that's where I'm at, and it's been fun.
Yeah,
I think that's the right word. Yeah. I'm healthy, I think, but my containers are not. I think that's the joke. Something about that. Something. That's me.
Good stuff. Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you.
Zach will also be presenting at this user group a couple months from now.
Great.
So go ahead and decline the RSVP now, so you can spare yourself some time.
Okay. Thank you, Zach. Jeff, your turn.
Sure. So I'm Jeff Darchuk. I also work at Perficient along with Ben and Zach. And I've been doing a lot of Kubernetes, Docker, DevOps stuff, hence the presentation here about Sitecore Blue-Green. So lately I've been digging into 10.1 and all the weird stuff they started throwing at us with new ways to disseminate items into your databases with their DAT files and things like that. So there's a lot of confusing things Sitecore is throwing at us now. So all things that we definitely need to pay attention to, especially given a from a DevOps perspective and a blue-green perspective as well. So there's a lot there, and there's a lot to keep track of, and it seems to be getting harder and harder as Sitecore expands. So we'll talk about that more later. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. It's been a lot of DevOps.
And like Zach, Jeff will be presenting at this user group very soon, though.
Yeah, very soon.
Very soon. Okay. I'm apologizing in advance if I mispronounce your name here. Please correct me. Kariga?
Yeah, hi guys. That's actually quite good. Thank you. It's kind of
awesome.
hard to mispronounce, to be honest.
I would try. I'm usually pretty good at somehow finding a way.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. So hey guys, for me, I just joined Conabus now about 3 months, and pretty good experience so far. Working, also did some work in the Docker space for Sitecore, just to kind of figure out like how things are working there. Posted in the repo that Conabus has for the Docker image. Put out a few blogs. Looking forward to digging deeper into containerizations and Sitecore, going into the SaaS space and see what's in store for us there. So yeah, that's basically all I'm up to.
Cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Going in the list, Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt Getz. I'm a dreaded client developer, which also means that I'm more or less the only guy in my organization who knows anything about Sitecore. It also puts me probably a few years behind the curve on you guys. We're still on premises for everything, and the only containers I have are for storing my medicines. But I'm still looking forward to the blue-green stuff for tonight, because we are growing our environment, we're building our environment. We just moved actually from 8.2 to 9.1, and we're on our way to 10.1 right now. So that's all in process. In the nearer term, let's see, I had some fun with languages in the last couple of weeks. We have huge multi-tenancy issue, and a lot of our tenants use different sets of languages, and language resolution was struggling with that. in some sites. So essentially I had to put in a custom resolver to keep out languages that belong to other sites, but not to my site. Sitecore knows about, but this tenant hates. So that was good and fun, and that deployed successfully without breaking the world. So my boss didn't get mad at me. And my next adventure is going to be trying to figure out how to get all my Zookeeper files from my search stacks install into source control somehow, so I can never lose them. If anyone's done that, I'll be listening on Slack later. Other than that, I'm in decent shape, and it's a pleasure to meet you all, and I look forward to hearing what's on the table tonight.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Matt. I'm going to read Mohammed's. He's having audio issues, but he was kind enough to share it in chat. Hi, everyone. I'm Mohammed. I'm working for AmericanEagle.com as a solutions architect. I have audio issues, so I thought to share here. Nice to meet you all. So thank you, Mohammed. Ruben.
Hey guys, Ruben. I work at Habanero. I haven't been to one of these in a while actually, and it's actually really timely that I stumbled across Blue Green because I'm wrestling with it right now. I have a small website for a client that I'm working on, and we had Blue Green deployments set up on IIS, and now I'm just going on a magical journey through Docker Swarm on-prem. Yeah, I've never really looked at that before, and also moving to 10.1, so lots of stuff to learn. Yeah, really interested to see what you got. Good to meet you all.
Good to see you
Thank you
again,
very
Roman.
much.
Me too. Haven't seen Ruben in ages. To sit across from Mr. Ruben, I didn't even recognize you for a second there. Probably because I have my glasses off. But yeah, good to see you.
Sasha.
Hey guys, yeah. So I work with Mohammed, American Eagle. Late. So yeah, I had a project that heavily utilized Docker. So it was a learning curve, but that's like done now. I've been doing a lot of DevOps and Azure Portal lately, actually, just like as a developer. Like I don't know how much I'm supposed to touch that stuff, but I had to, so that was fun. And I don't know, I'm kind of hoping to find more time to play with headless and Next.js, because like listening to all the user groups, I got really excited to try it out, and now it's just like I don't have the time. So hopefully in the upcoming months, I'll be able to I don't know, write something on the side and have fun with it. And that's about it.
Cool. Thank you very much. So I've seen a couple new faces join, or well, new names join. So just to, oh, there we go. Dennis has finally joined the theater. So I saw a couple new faces join. I'm not sure who has most recently joined. So just to give a quick recap, right now we're going through a Sitecore stand-up where we're just going around the room and sharing essentially what you've been working on and what you'd care to share most recently. Next on the list is Simar. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Please feel free to correct me, and please do so.
Hi, Simmer is good. I'm glad that you changed from Simmer to Simmer. That's because usually I heard Simar. So Simmer is good. Hi guys, this is Simardeep, working with the Sitecore space. Yeah, from quite a time now. Hi Nabil, hi Denise. I'm not able to turn on my camera, not in a position to show myself. Hi Karega also. I know these guys, I work with them. Right now working on a 9.3 project, is an upgrade project, multilingual, around 35 or 45 languages. And I'm pretty much looking forward for this blue-green implementation because we want to have a zero downtime with blue-green. So, but every time I try to do it, I never achieved it so far. So I'm looking if where I missed and what I missed. And that's it. Nice to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for sharing. Second to last, I guess, would be Rob.
Oh, hey, I just
came by, saw it on Slack that it's open. But all things Sitecore lately, I've been working on Content Hub stuff. So glad to be here. Just I don't know how long I'll be able to stay, but it's 5 o'clock my time almost. So just wanted to check things out. Nice seeing you guys.
Cool. Thank you. And last would be me. I am Ben. Today is my day to host this. To host Jeff. I've been with the Toronto Sitecore user group for the last couple of years. Most recently, I've been working on a couple of sites that are hopefully going to launch pretty soon. One is SXA, and the other one is not, but it has a very elaborate and well thought out deployment process, which includes blue green. I'm very interested to see what Jeff has to show because he helped. So I want to still give it until maybe about 6 o'clock, just in case there's some stragglers before we start with Jeff, because I know that's going to probably be starting at that point a half hour early, but still want to give everybody till at least 6. So for the next 7 minutes, does anybody else have anything you want to talk about?
I didn't go, so I'm gonna go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Please take at least 10 minutes.
You should be careful what you ask for. I could take that 10 minutes to like to run my mouth. So what's up with my Sitecore stand-up? So I'm doing SubCon. That's going to be fun. Now I got myself into some trouble. They accepted the damn thing, so now I have to actually work on the presentation and trying to do some stuff with Content Hub. We're going to be doing a presentation called 360 Content Everywhere. So it's going to be like Content Hub, omni-channel content strategy, and marrying that up some personalization. Wanted to do some box ever stuff, but I think Rick and Rich are going to have that amply covered, so I don't want to duplicate that. I'm going to do ours with uniform since that's already half baked. Yeah, so we'll have a little different flavor on Content Hub personalization at the edge, and getting some of those engagement value scores back into the platform so that you can do your content strategy across different channels. So that's going to be fun. I've been entertained by some of the Sitecore purchases most recently, including Send since the last time we met, and others. So talking a little trash and wondering what the hell is going on with Sitecore has been part of my part-time efforts right now. But I'm hearing some more comforting things from them in terms of product strategy, and I forget the name of the new product fellow. He was on an MVP webinar most recently, but he seems to know what he's doing. He's the head of product now, and so I think that we've got some good things ahead for Sitecore. It's going to be some interesting shifts as we kind of integrate this headless Jamstack thing with their product direction. So that's exciting times for that. SubCon, everybody register for that. Nabil mentioned submit your papers. Anybody here who wants to present at the Sitecore user group, ping Nabil, Ben, myself, and anybody else on the organizing committee and get your stuff in. That's what I've got for stand-up. We just had
4 more minutes. Keep going. Also, I believe it's pronounced Moose End.
I think it's actually Moo. Send.
No.
It's Moo.
Moose.
There's a cow. It's a cow. The logo's a cow.
It's the end of the moose.
I know how it's spelled. I'm telling you though, I'm personally pronouncing it Moose End.
It's probably more a charitable way to pronounce it, but I kind of like Moo Send myself. I wouldn't want to be the end of a moose any more than I would the end of a horse, to tell you the truth. So I don't know. I think that mine is pretty good. Absolutely. Hey, Bella.
I wanna talk about like maybe in a few minutes. Anybody try to play with the Next.js?
Yeah.
Because I mean, we recently did kind of like a quick proof of concept on Next.js and also comparing it with React on JSS, and we found it that it's buggy still. It's still giving like lots of errors, and it's not a smooth POC so far. So
You're talking about the JSS, Next.js stuff that Nick was doing last time around?
yeah.
Okay.
The Next.js new version on JSS, the Next.js framework for JSS. So nobody just have anything to say about it?
Well, just cracked it open. Haven't had a chance to actually do anything other than look at Nick's demo and see where the repo is. Right, but no.
Yeah.
At least I started a little bit on Next.js and then backed out. Then just going with the traditional JSS React.
Okay. I mean, I wanted to use the Next.js framework for a headless implementation we're starting right now, but the team was not comfortable using it right now, and they reverted back to React. I think that's a wise decision because it's unstable still, it seems. Although I would love to use that technology and the static site generation and all this stuff, but yeah, it's a new thing. It's unstable.
But one thing is Next.js is built on top of React.js. So one thing I'm having in mind is even if we go with React.js and build stuff, we could still in future port it to Next.js project, because Next.js is one layer or one level up. So it's just the build pipeline, right? So that's the reason I just thought like this is too much and it's a bit unstable. Honestly, I didn't feel very comfortable proposing it to the client.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Being first is hard.
And also in the community, when I was checking in this one of the lunch, they mentioned only one site has been implemented or live with Next.js.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
implementation, you mean?
Let me find it out in the chat. It was a tweet actually. Nick Wilsonman was mentioning about that tweet. You can search in Twitter. The Next.js with Sitecore, it was one of the tweet he mentioned about the site. And then especially we were looking at the Lighthouse scores and it was really terrible.
Yeah, of course, because it's a static site. It's definitely like, whenever there's any requests or visit to the site, it doesn't go to the CD to render the components. It's just serving the static site. So that's the value.
He was saying it was terrible, the one that he looked at.
Oh, did he say terrible or it's good?
No, he was saying it was terrible. It should be awesome. That's the whole point.
It should be awesome. Something was bad. So let me give the numbers. It was in mobile scores were like 40-ish and desktop scores were like 60 or 70. So we thought like our MAC site is doing much better than that. So.
Oh, okay. No, that's surprising. Sorry, I didn't even thought.
I'm not entirely complaining about the platform, but I'm saying something is not built right or something is not right.
Yeah. It's still new and unstable. Oh, I see Elena here. Hi, Elena.
Yes.
Hi, Nabil. How are you? Hi, everyone.
Good. We're still finishing the stand-up. If you wanna go, if you want, no pressure. You can pass.
Yeah, I'm again the last. I'm sorry, I had a meeting actually, so I couldn't join earlier.
Did you bring the new team member? That one is that one? That's the one who joined us last time. Is that team member there?
I hope that team member doesn't join.
Okay. All right.
Should I introduce myself? My name is Elena. I'm a Sitecore developer at EPAM Systems. Have been working with Sitecore for about 4 years. Currently really interested in Sitecore JSS. Recently had my first site. It's almost live. Yeah, that's it. Really excited about today's meeting as well.
Nice.
Thank you
for joining, Elena. All right, Ben, where do you want to take us next?
Well, when I'm done throwing tomatoes at Dennis, which I think I am
Oh,
now, I think
where
we
where are
can
you at?
I'm to your right.
Oh, other way.
You're actually right in the middle of the camera now. Well, not in the middle, but
Oh,
everybody can see you. If
yeah,
anybody's
yeah.
looking at my my little avatar or my camera, that's Dennis that you're seeing.
Yes, sky right over here.
Okay. Jeff, are you ready to start if I hand over the controls to you?
Sure. Yeah. Then I can share.
Dennis has to do that, I think. Unless you're just able to share.
I don't
I
know.
think
I'll
everybody
push the
can
button.
share. Yep, there you go.
All right, forget my artistic ability. It's not awesome. There's no prettiness to this, but we're not here for pretty, are we? So
Actually, I
I'm,
love it. It looks great.
It's
oh, well,
blue and
thank you.
green.
It's
Blue and green, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
it
it's
makes sense.
logical. It makes sense. So blue-green, the desire to deploy Sitecore with zero downtime, mostly. So I say mostly because as I'll get into later, deploying Sitecore with completely zero downtime across the entire platform is unrealistic. So we're gonna cut some corners to make it something that is relatively easily attainable. So for me, I'm Jeff Darchuk. Here's a link to my blog and my Twitter. I'm not super active on Twitter, but there's some good stuff on my blog. I've been doing it for 5 years now, sort of regularly. So yeah, and I've been working with Sitecore for about 11 years now, I think it's been, and CMS tools exclusively for the last, geez, what's it been, 14 years? So I'm an old CMS veteran, kind of curmudgeonly when it comes to these things. So, all right. Yeah, we're ready to start, right, Ben? Or should we stare at my lovely
Go
starting
for
screen
it.
here? All right, I'm going for it. So first up, what is blue-green? Blue-green is a parallel environment that's brought up and updated with the latest state. So that's your latest code, the latest content items. And it's tested and vetted. And once everything looks perfect, a load balancer is switched to point to the new environment. This causes no discernible downtime. So that's kind of the dream. You can deploy whenever you want, wherever you want, and nobody has to stay up till midnight to do it in the off hours or something like that. Nobody wants to do that. So why is this so hard? Sitecore relies both on data and code to render pages. Therefore, you can potentially face errors if you update one without updating the other. For example, if your code relies on a field existing in the Sitecore database, the best case scenario is that your component will render strangely and look odd. The worst case scenario is you could crash your entire app pool. And I have seen this before, where some rogue programming, when a field doesn't exist, goes into a Stack Overflow and completely blows up everything. And so Sitecore doesn't give a good opportunity to update both at the same time. So it makes blue-green quite a bit more difficult. Not impossible, but a lot more difficult. So there's a few important notes as it applies to Sitecore in regards to blue-green. Sitecore officially doesn't support blue-green. If you go to Sitecore engineers and say, hey, how do you do blue-green? They'll tell you we don't do blue-green unless there's some dramatic change that's happened in the last year or so. But when Sitecore refers to blue-green, they're talking about the entire platform. So CM, CD, Xconnect, and all the other stuff they got jammed in there these days. So when you look at the whole picture like that, it's an enormous undertaking to have any kind of blue-green support on that. And there's a lot of complex and fragile interactions between the various environments within a Sitecore ecosystem. So all the processing nodes and Xconnect nodes and all that stuff, they have some strange connections that are difficult to manage. The other thing is Azure is flaky. Anyone who's used Azure significantly over the last few years can probably attest to the fact that Azure will do weird things like report a failure when there was no failure, or report no failure when there was a failure. You can see all these things fairly regularly when working with Azure, as well as lots of other kind of fun Easter eggs that they like to throw at you. And if you go to Microsoft support for these kinds of issues, they will say it's your responsibility to implement checks and retries. So they'll punt it to you and say, if you want your environment to not incur downtime when we mess things up, you got to make sure Sitecore loads up faster, which, as I'm sure all of us here know, Sitecore is not very fast to load up. So you're kind of sunk there as far as Microsoft is concerned. And another key factor, specifically with blue-green in a Sitecore context, is we have to identify who our customers are. So in Sitecore, we have multiple end users. We have content authors and website visitors. Who is more important in the two of those? I think we'll all agree that end users, the ones who generate revenue, are the ones who are going to be more important there. And how do the QA engineers fit in here? What do they need to do in order to get this code out? And how does this affect everyone involved, jobs from authors to approvers to QA personnel to release coordinators? So we have to kind of think about it from multiple angles, because we don't just have a website we're managing, we have an authoring experience as well, which is something that oftentimes gets overlooked by lots of people in the tech industry and management and things like that. So just for fun, you could spitball a perfect deployment method where you have zero downtime across the board and everyone's happy. You have a load balanced CM, you have marketing automation, blue-green, EXM, content delivery, ref data, et cetera, so on and so forth, and say everyone's happy, but realistically it's an unfeasible ask. And so if you were tasked to implement this and there was no cost associated, they said, we need it, everything needs to be blue-green, get it done, you'd be looking at years of effort to get all of these pieces functioning in a blue-green manner reliably. And additionally, once you got everything done, the amount of time that you'd have to wait for all these processes to complete would be mind-boggling to begin with. So it's pretty much a non-starter, and this is effectively why Sitecore has abandoned blue-green as an officially supported thing. So my proposal is to kind of take an easy mode where we prioritize the website visitors. We can focus on getting new data contracts or the templates and the new code deployed to a delivery environment to allow the website visitors to see no downtime by sacrificing a few tenets of a traditional blue-green deployment. And so what I mean by that is we can toss the authors under the bus, so to speak, and say, hey, we need you guys to have some downtime, we need you to have some governance around this process in order to prioritize budgets, feasibility, and our end users. So with this approach, we're gonna it's utilizing PowerShell heavily to kind of perform the operations that we need to be agnostic of a build release platform. We're going to accept that some downtime will occur in the content management environment, and we're going to accept that some data in the XConnect and marketing automation systems will be generated by testers in an offline environment, something that's not accessible to end users. So there are 5 primary systems in Sitecore that you need to be concerned of when you're looking at it through this lens. The first one being content management, second one content delivery, the SQL databases, particularly the master and web, and the master core and web core for Solar, and the XConnect platform to a lesser extent. So each one of these individual slices is going to have its own special operation to allow it to deploy in a blue-green manner. So starting with the web database, the first thing that we're going to do is utilize some of the Azure tools. So most of the work that I've done here is utilizing Azure. Realistically, it could be done in any cloud platform with these same steps, but some of the terminology I'll be using should be specific to Azure, since that's kind of my wheelhouse as far as doing this. And I suspect that's probably the way the majority of us are as well. But anyway, the first step is to copy the web database. And so after you're done, you have an identical copy of what's in the web database. From that point, you can wire up your content management system to this new web database. You can see on this third step, the content delivery environment is isolated from the content management environment. So at this point, the content authors are not able to edit content in this production environment. So that allows us to kind of pave the way for our green environment. The next step is to take our copied web database, spin up a new content delivery environment, and wire it up to this new web database. So this allows us to take our content, deploy it into this web database, take our code, deliver it into this content delivery node, and at our leisure, make sure that the content items are synchronized, make sure that the code is up to date, and that the testers have gone in and tested, all without impacting the currently operational end users visiting I guess the old site in this context, or the blue site. Yeah, I guess in case anyone is confused by the terminology, blue refers to the customer-facing site, and green is referring to the offline site for the when you say blue-green. Blue is online, green is offline. And so these assets are color-coded as far as what the end user is able to access. And if anybody has any questions, definitely feel free to interrupt. I want to have a more free flow question and answer as we go through this. So if anybody has any questions, make sure to speak up, and we
I
can.
actually have a question. So in this architecture or this method, are you utilizing Azure slots?
Yeah, in a PaaS scenario, you would be using Azure slots. In a Kubernetes scenario, you would be likely spinning up different pods, and I'll get to that more later.
Okay, so sorry, maybe I'm ahead of.
No, that's okay. It's a good question, and I've kind of a master flow diagram kind of toward the end. Kind of as a stair step kind of platform, I'm focusing on the particular asset. So this one is just referring to the web database to kind of really focus in on the individual assets that are important to this process.
Right.
And then after I get through kind of a focused view on each one of the individualized assets, we're going to expand it out and see how they all flow together and interact with each other, and how the process goes to completion.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question though. So next, the Solar Web Core goes through a very similar process where you spin up a duplicate web core. Only the main difference here is that so the process of spinning up the web core is you just have the core definitions deployed into your Solar environment. And as soon as you deploy out your new code to the content management environment, you would run a index rebuild operation in order to get that index populated with the up-to-date web information. And so, anyone familiar with indexing in Sitecore knows that you don't have to have the content management facilitate this. You could have the content delivery environment facilitate this. It's really up to you how the Solar Core gets populated with that information, but you have to get it out there somehow. And so you can see very similarly to the database, we create the duplicate, get it populated with the up-to-date content, and then we isolate our currently user-facing Solar cores away from our content management environment, so that we're free to make any kind of changes in here without impacting the content delivery environment. So you won't have new templates come through here and bulldoze your environment, for example. So it's completely isolated, and the end users are safe and protected from any deployment activities that are happening. So from the content management perspective, it's a pretty simplistic process. As defined in the previous two slides, we have our new web core web database, and you can see between this second column and third column, we switched the content management from blue to green. So this process gets the content management environment updated with the new code, the new templates, rendering items, and things like that, as well as wires it up to the new web core and web database, leaving the blue assets isolated from the content management. So in the final phase here is that the content management has no idea where the or what happened to the blue. It doesn't matter at this point. We're moving forward with the blue-green deployment, and we can test any kind of new authoring changes and any kind of new changes that we need to test on the content management server. And very similarly, the content delivery server goes through the same sort of idea, except the content delivery server never changes. It never has code deployed to it, rather, but instead it gets separated out from the new assets, and a brand new content delivery server is constructed from scratch and wired up to the new Solar core and web database assets. And the blue environment is set free to run with the end users while any kind of testing occurs here. Any kind of questions so far?
So at this point, the green environment is running the new code, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And it's completely isolated from the end users. No end user is able to access anything green at this point.
Hey Jeff, it's Dave Ambrose. Apologies, I got here a little bit late. Would you?
Hey, Dave.
Hey, would you roll back to the blue? Like if something really went there, would that be your rollback scenario?
Yep, absolutely. So effectively, you still have all the constructs there. You just have to roll back the code on the content management and wire it up to the blue assets again, and you'll be back to square one again. And I'll get into more of that later with kind of my more completed flow diagrams. And so any more questions, I should say, before moving on here? All right, cool. So XConnect is optional here. As I mentioned before, the XConnect piece, if it matters significantly to your business, you might want to come up with a plan to make sure that none of the testers are getting in there and creating contacts in your XConnect environment. For most of the sites that I've worked with, the effects are minimal. If there are test users going in there and creating contacts, but if it is important, the best way that I've seen to handle that is to have two identical permanent XConnect assets. So the main difference here is that everything that we've seen to date, it involves transient components where you will bring in brand new content delivery, brand new database, brand new Solar cores. But to the most effective way to do XConnect is have two parallel permanent environments. One that is always internal facing, so never customer facing, and one that's always user facing and never internal facing. That way you can be sure that any facets that are collected by the user facing XConnect is always going to be from end users to your website, and everything collected from internal is going to be for your internal facing assets. So if you have XConnect stuff that you're testing, for example, you can wire up your green environment to your internal XConnect, run tests, make sure the contacts are generated and everything's good to go there before you switch over to using the user facing XConnect and switching it to live. So pretty significantly different for the XConnect here, but definitely optional. It's one of the more difficult and challenging parts so far. And you know, you'd only really want to go down this route if you were significantly using XConnect. So this is kind of the way all these things kind of flow together and interact with each other. This is from a Kubernetes perspective. So if you're working with Kubernetes, this is an example of how this could work for you. So you can see from the initialize, we make copies of all the CD databases. So in an Azure Kubernetes environment, you'd be using the database duplication methods for your Azure databases. Or if you're using your own SQL server, you could use volume replication to replicate the volumes that have your MDF and LDF files. You would create a new Solar environment. So if you're running your own Zookeeper, you could spin up your own another Zookeeper, or if you or you could just create another set of cores and connect to the new cores for your green environments. That's definitely an option. Realistically, you're not trying to avoid using the asset as much as you are just avoiding using the content that is aggregated in that asset. But just for sake of argument, we'll say we'll have a new Solar environment that's able to service your content delivery. And from there, we have our updated custom images that is loaded into your container registry. So those of you who aren't familiar with kind of a containerization methodology, the way that works in the more modern Sitecore is you have your code that's loaded into custom images and built on top of Sitecore's images. So you would have the base for your custom images being the proper versioned Sitecore image, and all you'd be looking to do is copying in your custom files into that image, and you're good to go as far as creating new containerized environments with your custom code. So from there, you would overwrite the Kubernetes deployment attached to your new Solar and SQL assets. So you would push a new deployment into your content management Kubernetes pods that would connect it up to your new SQL and Solar assets, and you'd rebuild the index and execute a unicorn sync or TDS if you're using TDS, or packages if you're weird. And from there, you'd create a new content delivery Kubernetes deployment. So brand new one, you're not overwriting the old one because the old one's still servicing end users. And you would attach this new content delivery pod to your new Solar and SQL assets. And from there, you'd publish all of your new items and to the new databases and that you got via Unicorn, and you'd run tests. So at this point, you have your green environment fully functional. So you can run tests, and you go to this decision node and you'd run tests. And if it needs fixing, you drop back here. You would upload a new version of your image into your container registry and start again. You would then go through, deploy your code, hooking up to your new SQL and Solar. You'd rebuild the indexes. You would the second time you might not have to rebuild the indexes, but just for sake of argument, to guarantee your environment is fresh and up to date, rebuild your search indexes, Unicorn Sync or TDS or however you get your items in there. And you would create a new, you would target your new Kubernetes content delivery environment, overwrite it with the new images, and get back to your running tests. And so assuming that, for sake of argument, let's say that your coders made some serious mistakes and there's a need to roll back. So you go up here and go down this path. So you'd need rollback. At this point, you would overwrite your content management Kubernetes deployment with the older image version, the one that was running in production prior to you starting this blue-green deployment process, and attach it to your old SQL and Solr assets. And at that point, you'd be able to run a unicorn sync, because if you recall, in this process, we aren't messing with the master database. Instead, we're accepting that there is downtime for the content authors in this process. So you would get your old image running. You would execute unicorn or TDS or whatever to get your templates and stuff back to their original state. And oops, sorry about that. And you would delete your new CD deployments as you no longer need them, and delete your new web database and delete your new Solr environment. So at this point, you're back to the way you were prior to starting this process. Your content authors can go in and make edits to content. So this would be the path you would also take if you have an emergency content need. So like you had a disgruntled author that put a bunch of swear words all over the place or something like that. And us as the DevOps guys or the tech guys say, uh-oh, we can't update your content when we're in this state. So we got to roll back quick, make that content change, and then we can start over again. But that's a pretty rare use case that something like that happens, where there's emergency content changes that need to happen. But it's something that could definitely happen, and we definitely need to have a plan for. And so, oops, did it again. So assuming that your tests pass, then you can go to this release step. So everything's good to go. It's been smoke tested. Your QA engineers go in there. Everyone's given it the thumbs up. At that point, you'd update your Ingress controller if you're using Kubernetes based on Sitecore's latest examples. You'd update your Ingress controller to point it to the new content delivery deployment pod. And at this point, your environment is live and operational. So at this point, you can keep the old environment hanging out for emergency rollback needs, or you can finalize the process and kind of clean up the environment. So if you do have an emergency rollback need, so you've deployed to production and everything's gone to heck and nothing's working the way it should, all you'd need to do is you'd need to update the Ingress controller to point it back to the old content delivery deployment pod, and you'd be back to your old original state again. So a very quick, rapid way to get back to a known stable state. And assuming that enough time's gone by that you feel comfortable with this process, you can choose to finalize it by deleting all of the older assets, the old web database, the old Solr environments, and I see I should have mentioned here the old content delivery pods as well, but I see I forgot those. But after you clean that up, then you have no additional running cost in order to support this methodology, which is it's always an easy way to sell this, is that with the process defined and the scripting done, there is no running cost to blue-green deploy this way. It's just, free awesomeness that you don't really need to pay much for. That being said, while you're in the middle of blue-green deployment, you do have effectively double the running cost while it's happening, but that could theoretically be just maybe half a day, maybe a couple hours, however long it takes you to run your deployments. So additionally, I have it outlined in an Azure PaaS environment model. So this way works very similarly, but I can't remember who was saying it, but it uses deployment slots in Azure App Services to perform the separation between the blue and the green environment. That's really the primary use case for that slot technology in Azure PaaS. And so the way I have it set up here is you copy your content management production slot to staging. So you have effectively a replication of your deployed code as well as all the Sitecore files in your staging slot. And you make copies of your content delivery database and wire the content management system to your new databases, just like we were looking at before. And the same thing with the Solar environment. Bring up a new Solar environment and wire your content management to it. And then similarly, rebuild your indexes and copy the content delivery production slots to their staging slots, and then deploy the code into the staging slots, your new code into the staging slots, and wire it up to the new assets that you built. And then it goes through the same kind of testing test loop and a very similar rollback process where you would swap your staging slot and your production slot on your content management, execute unicorn sync to get the items back to the way they were, delete the staging slots for your app services, as well as delete the new database and the Solar environment as well. And for as far as deploying it to production, it would be just as simple as taking your content delivery slots and swapping the production and the staging slots, and then you're live. And if you need a rollback, you just swap them back and you're back to your old tried and true environment. And then finally, the kind of the same sort of cleanup where you remove the slots, remove the old database and Solar instance, and then you can execute your blue-green deployment during the day, and nobody has to stay late anymore. So I know there's a lot of information on these slides. Does anyone have any questions or want any clarifications as to kind of what's going on here? I try to trim it down as much as I can, but even so, it kind of looks like a spider web.
Not a question, but I have something to note. We've gone through this on one of my clients right now. There's currently a bug in Azure PaaS where if you're using a private endpoint, deployment slots don't work out too well. Like they don't actually support private endpoints. So that could be a limitation. Microsoft, when we reached out to them, said it's a bug. It's not that it's not supported. They considered it a bug. It is not resolved yet, but they're keeping us posted. So it's just something to know. If you're trying to do this right now with private endpoints, you're probably going to run into a problem.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are a few things like that you have to watch out for. Like some of these features are only available in certain tiers of Azure assets. So like the ability to copy a slot to another slot. So taking your production slot and copying what's in that slot to a staging slot, you have to be at a certain level. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's something like standard 3 and up or something like that, or maybe premium 1. I can't remember exactly what it is, but some of these things you have to get a little bit more creative for, but the process generally stays the same. It's just some of the out of the box features, Max Greed kind of took over and they say, hey, we only offer this for this, premium slots or something like that, which is, kind of a weird way to do business, but it's what we all need to deal with when we have customers of varying sizes that have varying needs. Not everyone wants to have P1 level app slots to run your, multiple content delivery servers or something like that. So you're going to run into some weird things like that. And like if you have ASEs, the app service, app service environments, app service areas. I forget what they're called, but it's the way to isolate your app services to a particular VNet and make it so they're not accessible outside of that. It's basically the way to do a little bit more secure networking around the platform as a service things in Azure. And I know those things have, when it comes to functions like this, they make it quite a bit harder. And so when I was operating this kind of method within that kind of ecosystem, I found that you needed to provide a little extra time between operations because granted this was a couple years ago, but you could run a slot copy. It would report that it's done, but in actuality, it's almost done. And so moving on to try to utilize a slot that's not operational yet, you could get errors. So that was something something that I was running into. And Microsoft always likes to keep us on our toes, I guess. But the general model that I'm outlining here has never fundamentally changed for me when for executing things in a blue-green manner. So good point, Ben. Any other questions, or if you're confused, that's okay. Questions are your friend.
I assume. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Hey, Bala here. I just have a question. I'm just thinking more related to the cloud services. How would that integrate? For example, considering AKS, and if we go with the Solar Cloud, or using a Coveo Cloud, for instance, for search. So how would that fit into this blue-green?
Yeah, so I'm kind of getting into that for the first time now as well. So back to like a Kubernetes cluster environment. If you're talking about like search stacks or Solar Cloud or Coveo or something like that, to create a new environment to be financially reasonable, the approach that I am going to take on this is to have a duplicate set of cores in the same ecosystem. So instead of having Sitecore dash master for the core name or whatever it is, you could say Sitecore 1 or Sitecore blue and Sitecore green or whatever you want to have them, and have those be servicing your different areas. As long as you have powerful enough platform as a service search environment to withstand that kind of thing, or have the ability to scale it up during a deployment, it should be able to handle that kind of a deployment. And then after you're done, delete out the old cores just as you would as I have outlined here, except instead of deleting the Solar ecosystem, you'd just be deleting the cores out of your platform as a service search stack. I think you're muted, Bala, if you're.
Yeah, sorry, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Zach, you had a question?
Yeah. I assume it's impossible to tell without looking at any given solution, but if you went from not having blue-green set up at all to implementing blue-green, is how long of an effort would you think that would be? Is that an impossible question to answer?
It's a tough one. I can tell you how long it took me to set it up for Dignity Health, which you know and love. The amount of time I POC'd stuff on that was about, I would say, 4 months before I got things worked out to a point where I knew it would work. Beyond that, it was probably another month of putting together the PowerShell scripts to perform the operations that I needed to have happen. And so kind of from nothing to having it took me about 5 months. But if you follow this same kind of model I put down, I mean, defining this was one of the hardest parts, is figuring out exactly what you can or can't do in a Sitecore environment. There's some things that are kind of confusing. For example, if you try to have a web database that's geo-replicated and you just have it like a write and a read and a read write where you have data replication. The environments for your green environment aren't going to be able to work because they require write access to the web databases. And so little things like that kind of ruin your day when you think you have something really cool, like, hey, let's do data replication on these web databases. And it seems like it's going to be really great, but then, everything just kind of derails. So, having a model defined like this should hopefully help any kind of future blue-green efforts here.
And to attest to that, more recently for one of my clients, we did actually go off of Jeff's blog post, which has this diagram or a version of this diagram on it. We made a couple of tweaks to fit their business requirements, but for the most part, it took about a week to 2 weeks following his guide.
Okay, so it's WWJD. What would Jeff do?
That's right.
More or
You
less.
you just follow that.
No, it's and my if you look on my blog post, I have scripts that I use to do it for Azure PaaS specifically. There's a lot of kudu manipulation on there to kind of take advantage of the REST API. If you're not familiar, kudu is the REST API that Azure PaaS gives you to manipulate files or run PowerShell scripts inside your platform as a service environment. So you can do things like upload files or read files, that sort of thing. So it's a really nice tool, and using that you can perform a lot of what you see here pretty effectively.
Cool. That makes sense. Thanks, guys.
Let's see. So kind of making it better. So if you do a lot of XConnect, you can definitely do blue-green deployments for XConnect specifically. Kind of good and bad is that XConnect's kind of its own entity in Sitecore. So the amount of blue-green or the work for blue-green is isolated to that XConnect stack, and it doesn't really cross over and impact the rest of your Sitecore ecosystem. So this would be if you need to deploy those pesky JSON files and DLLs to get your custom facets loaded into XConnect, and you needed to do that without any downtime. You could use kind of similar techniques to deploy out your files to the XConnect platform to get your facets out there. Additionally, if you're really, really lucky, you could have an environment that uses region split blue-green, where if you have different, in Azure, you could have a front door that's directing traffic to regional ecosystems. So you could have your traffic if you're across the whole I guess I can't say America because you guys are Canadian, but let's say North America. If you want to go across all of North America, you could have Azure front door distributing your load based on region to all the different regions across the Azure North American continent, from the west to central. I don't think there is a mountain one, but to the east. And using that kind of region split mentality, it makes it a lot easier. You can have the trigger the front door to stop delivering traffic to the central region, for example, while you do a deployment there and test it outside of the load balancer. Once everything's good, then you can bring that up and bring down each of the environments kind of in sequence. The front door traffic distribution feature will ensure that the users are always being sent to the environment that's closest to them, so you don't have to worry about them landing in a strange environment that is unexpected. You should always be able to tell where those users are going to be able to go. And so with that, you can avoid a lot of the kind of hullabaloo that I defined. But that being said, you have to have a client that's willing to shell out the money to have complete environments running in each region in order to do that. And personally, I've never had a client with the resources to do something on that scale. But if you did, that's definitely the direction you should go, is to utilize your regional load balancing in order to bring down and up individual regions with the new code in isolation, as opposed to running through database replication and solar core replication and all that. Now I know that some of you probably have the question of, okay, so looking at these diagrams, there's a lot of steps there. How long does this take? In my experience, when I was running this, it would be about in order to get to the point where you can test your green environment, you'd be looking at about 30 to 45 minutes in order to get this entire process done. So a pretty sizable chunk of time. Now, if you wanted to min-max that, I'm sure you could get it down a little bit more. For myself personally, I was just happy to see it working. The mentality that I had working through this was, it doesn't matter if it takes a while, because nobody needs to watch this. It's not like the deployments that happen in the off hours where everybody's sitting and refreshing the screen and hoping they can go to bed soon, right? It's not like that. You can kick it off. If things go catastrophically bad, then you just delete it and say, what happened? Well, and you're following this process, your end users will always be isolated from any kind of deployment activities. So one of the key tenets of this model is to protect the interactions of your end users. So regardless of what happens, the traffic should be protected against any of these changes that are happening. So worst case scenario is your green environment is terribly messed up, and you need to kind of go back to the drawing board and say, hey, what's going on here? But so then beyond that, testing is however long your testers need. If you have lots of integration tests, it might be no testers needed at all, if you're lucky enough to have those. Otherwise, the rest of this, switching the load balancer, incredibly quick. Cleaning up is pretty quick. So you're looking at probably about beginning to end somewhere between 1 and 2 hours. And so if you get in on a Thursday morning and start this process, then usually what I saw is, by the time lunch comes around, you're either done or it's been rolled back because something went wrong and we needed to roll back or something like that. So let's see. Yeah, and that's it. So any questions anybody has? I know there's kind of a shotgun of information right to everybody's faces, so definitely ask any questions. I know it can be really confusing. I felt hopelessly lost when I started this process, so I feel sympathy for anyone who's feeling the same way right now.
Maybe I
So
should
this process,
ask
the
a
whole process,
funny
Jeff,
question.
is completely automated, right? It's all scripts based, and it's completely automated.
Yep, that's the idea. It's a you push the button and you get a green environment, and you push another button and you swap that green environment into production. So it's a kind of a 2-button press idea, at least how I set it up myself.
How transferable these scripts that you made? So you spend a lot of time doing this process and writing the scripts for a new client. Is it like a really lift and shift, or you need to do a lot of changes to configurations of the scripts?
Yeah, it's essentially a lift and shift. The only kind of caveat being, like I was saying to Ben's comment, if you run into something like there are features available for only certain levels, and you're moving from a client that has a bigger budget to a client that has a smaller budget, you might have to rewrite some things. So like I was saying, the copying production slots to staging slots is something that's only available in a certain threshold. If you're not able to get at that, you might have to write your own functions for that. And I have gone through that process using the Kudu libraries to copy files from one environment, the production slot environment, to the staging slot environment. It wasn't too terribly difficult, and so it still preserves the same methodology, but it can add complexity and time. But other than that, I've had pretty good luck with lifting and shifting the scripting that I've done to other clients.
Very
And like I
nice.
said, all the PowerShell scripts are on my blog, so if you're interested in taking a look at those, you certainly can. They should be still applicable.
Nice. Thank you.
Oops. Okay. Yeah. Any more questions? Dave, you have a question.
What, me? No, because I hit the wrong button.
No, I'm just
I
kidding.
usually do. No, I love this stuff. I've used blue green before in the past, and it's great. Even from an API standpoint, to be able to push your stuff out there and really test it, to know it's good to go before you go live is a good feeling. And it's a little different with the CMS environment because, like you said, you do have a content pause with the authors. But if you don't, there's times where we left APIs out there for a day or two. We could just have at them, and then when we had the confidence we were good to go, you just flip it. And it's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, that's the dream. You know, I'm sure everybody's been on those clients or projects where you have to sign in at 10 o'clock p.m. or something to start the deployment. And then usually if you're in that situation, you also have incredibly slow deployments. So you have to sit there tapping your thumbs together for half an hour while it does its thing.
Yep, and then do 10 of them in a row. You got it.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, that's really what kind of spurred my my speed to get this done. Is I didn't want to do that anymore. That's not fun. Nobody likes that. So it was pure greed that I set this up in the first place. I just didn't want to bother anymore.
Did you watermark the PowerShell scripts? Because I will happily claim it as my own on my next client and
No.
say I'm a genius.
Please do.
No.
Please do. Yeah, and I'm planning to do the same with Kubernetes. I haven't finalized it yet in Kubernetes, but once I do, I'm gonna release a blog post kind of outlining what it takes and some scripting. It's probably going to be a lot of kubectl commands to get it done, as opposed to PowerShell and Kudu. But so that's something that I'm working on currently, getting out there on my blog. And yeah, I haven't looked
That would be
into
helpful.
like Docker Swarm or any of the other container technologies as of yet, but it's probably pretty similar to Kubernetes as far as process goes.
Any other questions for
right.
Jeff?
Disclaimer, I will not hijack it and not give credit. Obviously, all hail Jeff Darchuk. Thanks for doing this, man.
Hey, you can take it. I don't mind. I just want to help out you guys. I don't care about recognition. If someone
Okay,
finds
so
it useful, that's a reward for me.
that's an invitation, by the way, to reach out to him on Slack if you have any questions whatsoever on any blue-green process for any client.
Yeah, Ben's joking,
Yeah,
but
looking forward for the AKS stuff.
I'll help out. You reach out on Slack, I'll help out.
We're just building a new thing for like 10.1, and we were the same thing. I was out of a deployment last night, which ran till 11 p.m. Started at like 7:30. We had some hiccups and we have to stay back late. And I've been always thinking or proposing to the client we should go with a blue green, and we just need to flip the switch in the load balancer, and we should be like call it a night and done
Yep,
with
that's
it.
where your Ingress controller is your best friend.
Yeah. We just started with 10.1 with AKS, so hopefully if your blog is out in time, then probably we can just take use.
I'm not
use
going to
of
make
it.
any promises, but
No, that's fine. But we already having hiccups with this new environment and the scripts and
yeah,
stuff.
Kubernetes
So
is a weird beast when it comes to all the way all these things interact with each other. And I know Sitecore has been kind of dramatically changing the way that they recommend you utilize Kubernetes. So I started with 10.0, and even between 10.0 and 10.1, the amount of changes that they made are pretty staggering. And so if things trend the same way, I wouldn't be surprised if Sitecore says, hey, 10.2, we recommend this methodology of deploying out Sitecore, and it's completely different, and it totally messes up everything that we've done to date. So I'm crossing my fingers that that's not the case, but I do have my fears. So it's definitely something we got to watch out for. The Sitecore and Kubernetes is definitely kind of a new and delicate and fragile team pairing. So definitely keep your eye out for any kind of weird changes there.
hopefully we'll see something in 10.2.
Yeah, maybe.
Not too far off.
I'm hoping that they say, okay, we got it. 10.1's pretty good. Let's just keep going with it, so we don't have any more dramatic changes. There's a lot when 10.1 came out. There's a lot of heavily breaking changes that happened that they just kind of snuck in under the radar. So Sitecore doesn't understand quite how versioning works, I don't think, but they keep us on our toes, right?
Does anybody truly understand versioning?
I know I don't.
Cool. Any final thoughts? Any extra questions? Anybody want to just get to know Jeff?
Yes, they do. Maybe I should ask this. Why did they choose the color blue and green?
That's a really good question. I actually have no idea why. My best guess is just on diagrams. It's easy to identify what's the online and what's the offline environment. So it makes diagrams like these pretty easy to understand.
Actually, changing that question a little bit. One of the differences in what you said and what my kind of understanding of what blue-green is that you did explicitly describe blue as being a public-facing environment and green as being like private and inward. Whereas in the past, I'd heard it referred to as simply as there's A and there's B, and they're kind of interchangeable, and you can literally reuse your assets to go from blue to green this time, but next time you're going to go from green to blue, and your blue environment will be. I definitely see some of the difference that you describe in your blue assets are all new. They're not repurposed assets. They're not updated assets, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I'm kind of curious as to that difference and where you got your better education than me, because chances, I don't read.
It was just stumbling through it, honestly. I spent a lot of time, and everybody here probably knows what you feel like when you just go into the zone and it's like 5 hours later and you're like, whoa, what happened to the time? And then you look at your code and say, what did I write? And then you say, holy crap, it works. There was a lot of that happened. Kind of this free flying higher level programming going on.
Yeah, just another thought on the same comment. I believe that is still true with when it is considered as a infrastructure as service, because you have fixed servers and then you're deploying on one server that becomes your green, and then the next time that becomes your blue or green. I think one of the sessions I attended in Symposium, it was described that way.
Mhm.
So your blue becomes your prod, and then the next time your green becomes your prod, and then it keeps flipping back and forth.
Yeah, that's essentially what happens here. So like right here at the point where you switch your load balancer, that means that your green becomes blue and your blue becomes green. So at that point, you know, the green is outdated, and that's why we either chop it off or we roll back to it. So yeah, that's a good point. I should have made note of that your blue becomes green and your green becomes blue when you do this swapping of the slots. So or the ingress controller load balancing switch.
How long do you keep your rollback copy around until you feel comfortable enough to just delete it?
Well, it depends on what the client confidence level is versus what their ability to pay the extra costs are. So having the old environment that switched to green after you went live, you can keep it around until the next deployment. The only caveat being is you have to delete it before you get to a new one, just because, you know, you don't want to have super old deployment. I mean, if you're about ready to deploy new code, odds are the code that was running in production is good to go. So, but generally what I've seen is clients like to keep it around for a few days, 2 or 3 days before kind of giving it the go ahead. If they don't see any kind of rise in errors coming across the pipe or things like that, then they consider it to be good to go and able to be the old environment able to be decommissioned and kind of save the running cost from that parallel environment. All right, anybody else?
Last chance. Well, Jeff, thank you very much for your time. This was an awesome presentation. So you can follow him on Twitter, as he said. He's not too active. Hit him up on Slack. Just bombard him with all these questions. He has an awesome blog, and I've seen most of the stuff is on it. If you are looking into blue-green, I strongly suggest you give that blog post a look over. And feel free to nitpick anything that you think he might have done a little bit wrong. But I can tell you, I've used it. Oh man, I've known Jeff a while, but no, I've used it myself, and as I said, it has worked out really well for us. At least his part did. Microsoft was, so
that's what you'll get. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for attending the Toronto Sitecore user group. From a housekeeping standpoint, we do try to have these once a month. Next month, we have somebody slated. Nabil, is that do you know who it is?
Yeah, okay. It's Doug, right?
It's going to be Rick.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's yeah, I'll just double check the dates, but I believe that we've got Rick on deck, Rick and Rich. I'll confirm that, but we'll be posting it in either way, whether we're doing that exactly or pivoting. But I think we've got Rick lined up for next month.
Yeah. Also, the one that Sana is hosting is the following, right?
So I will clarify. I might be stepping on her, so let me I'll validate that. Just make sure we're not doing that to her. But I think it is the following, but I'll double check. Good point.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
So the point I was trying to make is we definitely have another user group talk next month. Who it is, we'll figure it out. But thank you. So Dennis, Nabil, is there anything else worth noting?
I just want to really thank Jeff for this awesome presentation, tons of great information. Thank you.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks, and the amount of work that went into that for the community, for sure. That's so valuable to us all. And avoiding that downtime, man. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for putting in the work for us all, man.
My pleasure. Yeah, I was very excited to share.
I don't know. I have it on good information that Zach actually wrote those scripts.
So that's the
Yes.
word around town. That's the word around town. Yep.
Good guy, Zach. Thanks, Zach. Under
Good
the table,
guy,
thanks.
Zach, criminal Zach, whichever.
Cool. Well, everybody, drive home safely. I'm sure everybody drove really far to get up to here in Canada for this. So fly safe, drive safe. Have a good day. Good evening.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you very much.
everybody.
See you all next
Take
month.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks so much.